Hutch is waken up by unusual noise downstairs. He quietly gets out of bed and checks on his children, Sammy and Blake, to confirm they are still in bed. Hutch descends the stairs and grabs a golf club from the landing. As he reaches for his phone to call the police, one of the intruder, Lupita, points an old revolver directly at him, while the other intruder, Luis, searches the kitchen for valuables. Hutch tells them to take the small amount of cash sitting inside a bowl on the counter. They also demand his expensive wristwatch and even try to take his wedding ring. Hutch willingly hands over the watch but refuses to surrender the ring. As the robbery is ongoing, Hutch notices a small tattoo on Lupita's wrist. Just then, Blake charges downstairs and courageously tackles Luis to the floor, locking him in a tight hold. Hutch then raises the golf club high into the air as Lupita points the gun toward Blake. Then, unexpectedly, he stops. Instead of attacking, Hutch orders Blake to let the robber go. Confused and disappointed, Blake reluctantly releases Luis, who immediately punches the teenager hard in the face before escaping with Lupita into the night. Minutes later, police officers arrive to investigate the burglary. Everyone is physically unharmed, but the emotional damage is obvious. One officer assures Hutch that protecting his family's lives was the right decision. Another remarks that if it had been his own family, he would have fought back. The comment cuts deeply. By the next morning, neighbors are already talking about the burglary. Hutch's arrogant neighbor proudly claims he would have beaten the intruders himself. Blake listens silently, embarrassed by his father's reputation. At work, the burglary becomes the day's favorite topic. Charlie, Becca's loud and overconfident brother, wastes no time mocking Hutch for allowing the thieves to escape. He sarcastically asks why Hutch didn't simply beat them up, then hands him a loaded revolver, insisting he keep it nearby in case another burglary happens. Hutch takes the gun without a word and, once Charlie is gone, places it in an empty cardboard box at the back of the break room refrigerator, showing no interest in carrying it. Later, Hutch meets his father-in-law Eddie to discuss his previous offer to purchase the fabrication company. Hutch explains that he simply wants something that belongs to him. Eddie admits he has spent his entire life building the business and won't let it go cheaply. If Hutch truly wants ownership, he'll have to make a much better offer. Later, alone in his office with the door locked, Hutch sits at his desk and stares at a sketch he has drawn from memory, the tattoo on Lupita's wrist. Then he reaches into a hidden compartment and pulls out an old shortwave radio. He tunes it to a private frequency and contacts his adoptive brother, Harry, who has long since disappeared from public life. Hutch tells Harry about the break-in and explains why he held back. He could see from the moment Lupita pointed it at him that the gun was unloaded. The robbers were young, scared, and desperate, people stealing out of necessity, not malice. Harry agrees that Hutch made the right call and warns him not to do anything stupid. After work, Hutch visits his elderly father, David Mansell, a retired FBI agent living in a nursing home. David immediately notices the exhaustion and frustration on his son's face. He looks at his son and asks him a simple question. Does he remember who he used to be? Hutch doesn't answer directly. He returns home to find the family gathered around the dinner table, and for a moment, he stands outside the window, watching them. Then he walks in, greets everyone, and settles into his seat. And then Sammy asks where her kitty cat bracelet is. It was a small charm bracelet she treasured, and she remembers leaving it in the bowl, with the money on the night of the break-in. In an instant, something shifts in Hutch. Without a word, he gets up from the table and leaves the house. He drives back to his father's house while David is asleep. He moves through the darkened rooms carefully and retrieves David's old FBI badge and a revolver. David stirs and finds him. Hutch tells his father there is something he has to take care of. David looks at him for a long moment and tells him that if he's going to do it, he'd better do it well. Hutch nods and goes. He spends the evening working through the city's tattoo parlors, badge in hand, showing hand-drawn renditions of Lupita's wrist tattoo and asking questions. At each place, the expired badge gets him nowhere. Eventually, he enters a rough-looking tattoo shop filled with intimidating men who immediately realize the badge is long expired. They laugh at him, challenge him, and one of them even prepares to attack. Instead of backing down, Hutch calmly places a thick stack of cash on the counter and dares them to take it from him. The room grows tense. Then one of the men notices a faded tattoo on Hutch's own wrist. His expression instantly changes from aggression to pure fear. The man thanks Hutch for his service before disappearing into the back room, refusing to have anything more to do with him. Everyone else's attitude changes immediately. The hostile men become respectful, and the tattoo artist quickly provides Hutch with the address of the woman who bears the tattoo he has been searching for. Without wasting another second, Hutch heads toward the address. Hutch finds their apartment and lets himself in. He moves through the place like a shadow and confronts the young couple directly, pistol whipping Luis and leveling the gun at him, demanding the return of his watch and, more urgently, Sammy's bracelet. Lupita gives back the watch but insists that she doesn't have the bracelet. It was never taken. Hutch is coiled tight, ready to press harder, and then he hears a baby crying from a back room. He looks, there is an infant there, visibly ill, attached to a breathing machine. The couple are not professional criminals. They are parents trying to keep a sick child alive by any means available. He holsters the gun, looks at the two of them, young and terrified and broke, and he leaves. He steps into the pouring rain and repeatedly punches a solid brick wall until his knuckles split open. Hutch boards a city bus to head home. Halfway through the ride, a speeding sports car crashes into a barrier directly in front of the bus. 5 drunken young men stumble out laughing and shouting before climbing aboard. They immediately begin intimidating everyone around them. Their loud insults quickly turn into outright harassment when they surround a young woman traveling alone. Instead of looking frightened, a faint smile slowly spreads across his face. He walks forward through the bus, moves the driver off and out of the vehicle, closes the doors behind her, and keeps her phone for safekeeping. He removes the bullets from his own gun and sets it aside. He turns to face the 5 men. Looking directly at the gang, he says, "I'm going to fuck you up," and the men burst into laughter. One of them punches Hutch backward, expecting an easy victim. Instead, Hutch explodes into motion. He launches himself at the first attacker, breaking bones with devastating precision. Another thug lands several heavy punches, while a third stabs Hutch deep in the side with a knife. The wound slows him down only briefly. Hutch crashes through seats, smashes faces into metal poles, snaps limbs, and uses every object around him as a weapon. The confined space becomes an advantage, allowing him to isolate his opponents one by one. One thug grabs Hutch's revolver and hurriedly reloads the bullets. Before he can fire, Hutch rips a steel support pole loose from the bus and disarms him, then slams it directly into the man's throat with horrifying force. The impact crushes his windpipe. The man collapses, desperately gasping for air. Instead of leaving him to die, Hutch kneels beside him and performs an emergency tracheotomy using a drinking straw, creating an airway that keeps the thug alive. He then walks off the bus and apologizes to the shaken bus driver for the mess and walks home through the night. When he finally walks through the front door, Becca is still awake waiting for him to return home. The moment she sees him, she isn't shocked by the injuries. Instead, she simply looks at him with quiet recognition. As she gently cleans his wounds and stitches the stab injury in his side, Hutch notices that the emotional distance between them feels different now. For the first time in years, they're actually talking. He admits that he misses the way things used to be between them. Becca listens without interrupting. It's clear she knows far more about Hutch's past than their children ever have. That night, she removes the pillow from the center of their bed and reaches for his hand. For the first time in years, husband and wife lie close together again. That same night, a car pulls up outside an upscale nightclub, and a charismatic Russian mob boss named Yulian Kuznetsov steps out. Unlike the stereotypical crime lord, Yulian appears cheerful, dancing and singing onstage before meeting with powerful members of the Russian underworld. He is responsible for protecting the Obshak, a massive money laundering operation that safeguards hundreds of millions of dollars belonging to various criminal organizations. Some of the mob leaders privately question whether Yulian has become too eccentric to handle such responsibility. Yulian answers their doubts without saying much. He breaks the martini glass in his hand, goes to a man who happens to be a shareholder and slashes the broken glass across the face, then opens his throat, murdering him in front of everyone. Yulian wipes his hands and asks the remaining men if their confidence has been restored. They raise their glasses and toast, because a dead shareholder means more money for the survivors. Moments later, Yulian receives an urgent phone call from the hospital. He arrives to find his younger brother, Teddy, lying unconscious after suffering catastrophic injuries during the bus fight. Doctors explain that Teddy has sustained severe brain damage and may never recover. He moves through the ward, interrogating Teddy's companions with his fists until one of them produces what he found on the bus after the fight: Hutch's transit card. Yulian takes it to his henchwoman, a skilled operative with Pentagon contacts, who begins the process of tracing it back to its owner. Just then, Hutch receives a phone call from Harry. He tells Hutch that one of the men from the bus was the younger brother of Yulian Kuznetsov, and that Yulian is a very dangerous sociopath who will feel obligated to respond even if he privately despises his sibling. Harry tells him to go see a man known as the Barber. After work, Hutch follows the instruction. He finds a barbershop downtown and walks in. The barber, a composed and sharp-eyed man, was already expecting him. He hands Hutch a file. Inside are photographs and intelligence reports detailing Yulian's criminal empire, his reputation for extreme violence, and the vast fortune he controls through the Obshak. The barber makes one thing perfectly clear: Yulian will never forgive what happened to his brother, no matter what Hutch does now. War is coming. At the very same time, Yulian is beginning to learn about Hutch. His henchwoman traces the transit card, and it identifies Hutch's father-in-law's factory as his employer, locates his address, and finds his father's nursing home. But every deeper search hits a wall. The information on Hutch Mansell barely exists in any civilian database. She is forced to use leverage, blackmailing a contact inside the Pentagon with compromising photographs. That contact goes deep into a special restricted section of the building and finds a file. He transmits the contents to Yulian's office and immediately breaks off all contact. He wants nothing more to do with any of this. Yulian's henchwoman reads the file. She looks at the record of what Hutch Mansell once was, and she makes a decision. She walks into Yulian's office, tells him she quits, wishes him luck, and leaves. No payment necessary. Yulian reaches for his phone and orders every man under his command to go after Hutch Mansell and bring him in alive. That evening, Hutch prepares a lovely dinner for his family. He is relaxed, almost cheerful, and he floats the idea of a trip to Italy. Becca listens with quiet curiosity, sensing something serious behind the suggestion. Before the meal is done, Hutch glances out the window and sees 3 cars arriving together and parking across the street. He quickly moves Becca and the kids toward the basement. A room behind a door that his family did not know existed is a room with a sophisticated locking mechanism. He gets them inside, gives Becca a quiet kiss, tells them to stay calm and not call 911, and shuts the door. He then cuts the power to the house and waits in the darkness. Yulian's gunmen flood in through every entry point, moving in teams, working with equipment and training. Hutch takes them apart one at a time as they search the dark, shooting, stabbing, using whatever comes to hand. He is methodical and ruthless, improvising weapons from what the house offers. A kettle, a lasagna pan, a kitchen knife, furniture. The gunmen keep coming, and he keeps dismantling them until Yulian's right-hand man, a man named Pavel, gets behind him and drives a taser into the back of his neck. Hutch drops. They handcuff him and drag him to the car, throwing him into the trunk. Yulian wants him alive. As the convoy speeds away, Hutch slowly regains consciousness inside the cramped trunk. His hands are secured behind his back. Without hesitation, he painfully dislocates and breaks his own thumb, allowing his hand to slip free of the cuffs. Searching the trunk in complete darkness, he finds a fire extinguisher. Smiling to himself, he suddenly kicks through the rear seat into the passenger compartment and empties the extinguisher into the driver's face. Blinded instantly, the driver loses control. The SUV slams into a traffic pole at full speed. The violent crash kills several occupants outright. Hutch crawls from the wreckage, bleeding but alive. One surviving gunman lies pinned beneath the overturned vehicle, mortally wounded. As the dying man struggles to breathe, he asks the obvious question. "Who are you?" Hutch kneels beside him. "I was an auditor, the kind of man they send when they don't want anyone left." With that, the man's eyes close forever. Hutch immediately calls his father at the nursing home, warning him that Yulian now knows about the family. David doesn't panic. He simply acknowledges the warning as though he has been expecting this day for years. Hutch races back home and unlocks the hidden panic room. He covers Sammy's eyes as he walks her back through the house, shielding her from the bodies that have come to occupy nearly every room. He tells Becca to take the children somewhere safe immediately. She doesn't argue. For the first time since they met, she fully trusts him without asking a single question. After watching his family drive away, Hutch rounds up the bodies of Yulian's fallen soldiers, including one man who is only barely still alive. He pours a glass of whiskey, puts a vinyl record on, and fills the space with classical music. Then he starts talking. He tells the story of a man named Alan, who stole $3 million from the government. Hutch was sent to find him and eliminate him. He found him, and Alan begged. For the first and only time in his career, he forgave and him go. A year later, Hutch went back to check on him, expecting to find nothing good. Instead, he found Alan living happily with a family of his own. He was not a jealous man, but in that moment he was. He then made a decision to retire. His superiors were not pleased, but he walked away anyway and rebuilt himself from the ground up as a husband. He pauses. He glances under the couch and spots something. Sammy's kitty cat bracelet that started all this lying near a pool of blood by the radio. It was never stolen. It had been there the whole time. Then he reaches for the vinyl record and lifts the needle, and the music stops. He sets the house on fire and walks out. The house begins to burn behind him. On his way out, he grabs a family photograph. He also reaches for his collection of gold bars, a lifetime's payment in a profession where cash was never what you wanted, and loads them into the car he steals from his neighbor's driveway. At the nursing home, 2 of Yulian's best men makes their way to the nursing home where David lives. They move through the quiet corridors without drawing attention, find his room, and approach the old man's bed. He appears to be asleep. They lean in, and David opens his eyes. He dispatches the first man with a shotgun blast and handles the second by hand. The 2 professional assassins sent to kill a retired old man in a nursing home do not succeed. Hutch drives to Eddie's office and sets the gold bars on the desk between them. He is buying the factory. The amount is spectacular, the kind of offer Eddie has always wanted but never imagined receiving. Eddie accepts on the spot. Charlie, who was around, is furious. He takes it as a personal affront, an erasure of everything his family built, and he tries to attack Hutch. Hutch puts him down with a single precise punch to the gut and leaves the office. Hutch temporarily closes the facility for maintenance. Inside, however, Hutch begins transforming the building into a fortress. Knowing Yulian will eventually come looking for him, Hutch studies every hallway, doorway, staircase, and machine. Using the factory's own tools and materials, he constructs an elaborate network of deadly traps. Every inch of the warehouse becomes part of an enormous killing field. As Hutch works, Harry contacts him over the hidden radio once again, warning him to stand down. If he keeps going, everything he has built will be destroyed. Hutch hears him out and tells him he has already made up his mind. Meanwhile, Yulian is learning the full extent of Hutch's retaliation. News arrives that Pavel and the assault team are dead. Before Yulian can even process that loss, another disaster unfolds. Hutch goes to the location where Julian's men keep and count the obshack, hundreds of millions in cash and laundered assets. He arrives fully armed, and the operation's security is no match for what walks through the door. He clears the building with methodical efficiency, killing every guard without suffering so much as a scratch. He moves through the vault and takes his time. He finds a painting among Julian's prized art collection, a piece he actually likes, and removes it before setting to work on the rest. The money burns first, then the art, then everything Julian has spent years accumulating. Tens of millions of dollars and priceless artworks go up in smoke. Hutch watches until the job is done, then leaves. Having destroyed the obshack, Hutch drives straight to Yulian's nightclub. While Yulian entertains his guests by singing and dancing on stage, Hutch sits at a nearby table enjoying a perfectly cooked steak while Julian's gunmen fill the room around him. The surrounding bodyguards eventually notice him. Within seconds, dozens of rifles are pointed directly at his head. Hutch doesn't even flinch. Instead, he slowly lifts the napkin covering his lap. Beneath it sits a claymore mine. Its detonator is wrapped around Hutch's finger. Yulian orders everyone to lower their weapons and leave them alone. For the first time, the two men sit face to face. Hutch explains that because of Yulian's attack, he had to burn down the home he spent years building for his family, so he decided to return the favor. The obshack is gone. Every dollar, every painting, everything Yulian spent his life protecting has already burned to ashes. He then makes an offer. They walk away from each other. Julian takes what little remains, starts over somewhere else, finds a better line of work. No more killing, no more targeting of Hutch's family. Julian listens to all of this with the strained composure of a man holding back. When Hutch finishes and stands to leave, Julian watches him go in silence. Hutch gets into his car outside and waits, genuinely open to the possibility that Julian will take the deal. Julian does not take the deal. Julian summons every remaining soldier under his command. Hundreds of armed gangsters begin hunting Hutch across the city. What follows is a high-speed chase through the streets. Julian's convoy bearing down on Hutch with everything it has. Hutch drives hard, opening the glove box and producing a compact submachine gun that he fires one-handed through the window while maneuvering through traffic. Cars pile up behind him. Men die along the route. Hutch takes damage. His vehicle gets hit. He gets hit, but he keeps going. He is leading them somewhere specific. He is leading them to the factory. The convoy arrives at the factory, and Julian's remaining army pours in through every entrance, fanning out across the floor in numbers that should guarantee the result. He draws them in, position by position, and then begins activating what he laid. The hydraulic press drops a grenade. The spring-loaded bars fire through the dark. Explosives blow out sections of the staircase. Men in barbed wire are sent up and don't come back down. The traps take a devastating toll on Julian's forces, thinning the crowd with each triggered mechanism, turning the familiar geometry of the factory into a labyrinth of lethal surprises. And then, without announcement, Harry appears. He is set up on high ground as a sniper, and he begins working through the remaining gunmen with a rifle. Moments later, David arrives, shotgun in hand, more alive than he has been in years. The three of them fight together across the factory floor, sweeping through the remnants of Julian's army in a controlled, devastating sequence. Harry catches a bullet in the shoulder. They fall back under cover, ammunition running low. But the floor is cleared. Only one man is still on his feet, Julian. Hutch looks at what he has left. One claymore mine, kept in reserve since the confrontation at the club. He tapes it to the face of a bulletproof glass shield and begins walking toward Julian. Julian pours fire into the shield and it deflects. Hutch drives the shield into Julian and detonates the mine. The explosion tears through the room. When the smoke settles, Hutch is still standing. In the distance, police sirens begin growing louder. Knowing they have no desire to explain decades of classified history to law enforcement, Hutch thanks both of them sincerely for coming when he needed them most. The three exchange a quiet look of mutual respect before Harry and David disappear into the night, just moments before officers surround the warehouse. Then, alone in the wreckage, he notices a frightened stray kitten wandering through the wreckage. He picks it up, tucks it inside his jacket, grabs a tin of tuna, takes the painting he rescued from the obshack, and turns himself in when the police arrive. Hutch sits across from the two detectives, battered and unbothered, feeding the kitten from a tin of tuna while a cigarette burns in his other hand. They press him with their questions. He offers them nothing, and then simultaneously, both of their phones ring. They answer, and all of a sudden their expressions change. They then let him go without any charges. 3 months pass. Hutch and Becca are touring a new house together with a real estate agent, walking room to room, talking about light and layout and the neighborhood. The agent is showing them through when she receives a phone call and hands it to Hutch. When he is done, he turns back to the agent and asks whether the house have a basement. Harry and David are shown rolling down a coastal highway in a well-stocked RV, the back of it loaded with weapons and ammunition. They exchange a look. They are headed somewhere undisclosed for reasons that will become clear in their own time.